Hi there, Jeremy O'Carroll, founder and director of the Fitzroy Learning Centres here. In this video, what I'd like to do is talk to you about phonics in the Fitzroy method. And I'm just going to give you a bit of a very quick introduction to phonics and talk about how phonics is an important part of the Fitzroy method. So, first thing to say is that phonics literally comes from a Greek word phone, meaning sound. So phonics is all about sound. Although many people have said that English is a very irregular language, actually what you're going to find out is that if you use an effective phonics system, you're going to be able to find rules to pretty well cover 90 to 95% of the English language. So at least with a method, with rules and a few other things put together, you're going to be able to read the vast majority of the English language. So it is effective. It's not 100% perfect, but 90 to 95% of English will be covered. And, you know, sort of proof in a sense that the phonic method is just so effective is the fact that the major two English-speaking countries in the world, the US and the UK, have both legislated for phonics, the US doing that in 1995 and the UK in 1998. And this was after a long period of time where the whole language method really didn't work very well. Now, there are four key building blocks to any phonics system. First one are the basic letter sounds. Then we've got the digraphs, 50 special words, and so these are really the high frequency sight words, spelling rules, and so really you just need those four things: the basic sounds, the digraphs, the 50 special words, and the spelling rules. You put them all together, and that's where you're going to get that 90 to 95% of the English language covered. Okay, now, what else do we know about phonics? Well, one of the main things about phonics is that it uses the alphabet. Now, what are the virtues of the alphabet? Well, one of the main ones really is just that it has very few symbols. Now, you might like to contrast this with something like Chinese. Well, Chinese, of course, has thousands and thousands of characters, making it very difficult to learn. But English, with just 26 uppercase and 26 lowercase letters, is a relatively simple thing to learn, and it doesn't take so much effort to do so. And so with the alphabet, which effectively is a sound code, all we need to do is learn these few symbols, and then we can read pretty well anything. Okay, now, with the alphabet, I would just like to define a term here, and that's basic sounds. So you might say, what are basic sounds? Basic sounds are just the sounds the letters make. So the sound the letter A makes is at, as in at for apple. And so when we talk about basic sounds, that's what we mean. We mean the basic sound the letter makes. For a bit more terminology, let's look at digraphs. And what exactly are digraphs? Well, digraphs are really a new sound. So it's a sound put together really by a couple of different letters to produce a new sound. So it's really what you might see as a letter combo. And here are some examples: ch, sh, e, shun, etc. So they're examples of digraphs. Now, the thing to remember about a digraph is it is most certainly not a blend. Now, what is a blend? Well, the thing about a blend is it is a combination of letters put together, but they make the same sounds as the basic letters. So let's have a look at some. You've got like sp, just makes the letter sound s, and at is just at and t. So you can see it's just the basic letter sounds run together, and that's what a digraph is. But, that's what a blend is. But a digraph gives you a totally new sound. Now, what are some instances of phonics rules? We talked about spelling rules, so they're really the same as here as what we're going to be terming phonics rules. So what are some instances of some of these? Remember, these are one of the four basic building blocks of any good phonics system. Well, an example of these phonic rules or spelling rules would be something like run to running. And you see that when we add the ing, we've got to double the n to keep the short vowel sound up. And if we didn't, it would turn into something like rooning. So what we've done is we've just learnt a phonics rule or a spelling rule, and that's enabled us to know how to spell any words, these short verbs like run or bat, etc., which have a short vowel sound when we're adding the ing, and we know we have to double the n. And that's just a rule. Now, there's lots of spelling rules out there in the Fitzroy method. We just teach the main ones. Now, let's contrast phonics to whole language. Now, the thing about whole language is they basically just force you to memorize every word individually. So you don't, in its pure form anyway, learn the sounds the letters make. You just try to memorize all the words. Now, this makes things quite difficult. And one of the reasons is that there really aren't any rules to help you memorize how to read words. So you just have to memorize them individually. And as a result of this, because you're not really focusing on the individual letters, then any word which looks kind of similar can easily be confused because you're not focusing on the individual letter, and so you're just looking at it as kind of a graphic whole. But of course, this can then mean, like if you've got a word like fall and a word like tall, they're almost the same except for the F and the T, which even those letters look the same. And so it's easy to confuse them unless you're looking very carefully at the first letter of each word. The other thing to know about whole language is it really treats every word as a sight word. And what we mean by that is just a word you have to memorize and you can't learn a rule for. Now, sight words, of course, because you can't learn a rule for, are more difficult to remember. But the problem with whole language is that since it treats every word as a sight word, it makes it very taxing on the memory because you just have to try to memorize every single word there is. And you might just remember that example which we gave in the actual video on this topic, and that had to do with chicken and chin. And the beautiful thing about phonics was if you could sound out chicken, then even if you'd never seen chin, you could sound it out. But if you were learning whole language and you learnt chicken and then you came across chin, there'd be no way that you'd actually be able to decode it or read it. Now, phonics is often confused with phonetics. So what is the difference? Well, phonics is really just concerned with teaching reading and writing, whereas phonetics is the science of speech sounds. So it's a far more complex field, and many of you might have seen the phonetic alphabet, and you look in the dictionary and you'll see that there it's kind of the squiggles often put after the word. But the point is that those squiggles, those symbols, indicate exactly how each word should be pronounced. And in phonetics, you're even learning, which part of the mouth you're using to get these different speech sounds. So it's a far more complex field, but it's not a huge problem if you do use the two terms interchangeably. But generally speaking, you want to use the term phonic because that is to do with reading and writing. Okay, just a few little things on the letters. The letter Q makes the sound qu. The letter X makes the sound x, like a CS or a KS run together. The letter M is best taught as a instead of a m. So just a m. And the letter N as a n. And remember, when you're teaching the letters, you've got to be very careful about the alphabet chart or phrases in your classroom because many of them are going to have images that are phonically inappropriate. For instance, often for the letter A, you see a picture of an aeroplane. Now, that does begin with the letter A, but not the sound at. So if you have an aeroplane on your chart at school, you're going to actually have to replace the picture. You're going to have to paste a new picture over it, something like an apple. Often you get problems with the letter X. On most letter charts, you've got either a xylophone or an X-ray, but a xylophone starts with a Z sound and an X-ray a E sound. So what you really need to do is something like X as in box. It's not perfect, but it's the best solution there is. So again, if you've got a xylophone or an X-ray, you're going to need to change the picture. What can we say about Fitzroy? Well, it's been in the classroom since 1976. So the Fitzroy method really is classroom tested. And as you know, it uses the phonics system. So it's very systematic phonics, and where every step builds on the one before it, and that really is the secret of its success. So there's a very quick little intro into Fitzroy and Phonics. Hope it serves you in preparing for your test, and I will see you on the next video.